Naomi back with IGN's E3 live show, streaming straight to you on e3.ign.com. Our last game of the day lets some people live out their wildest fantasies, as long as those fantasies are car related. Time to get ready for Forza Motorsport 4.
Thanks, Naomi. Peter Eichmann's here, sitting with the creative director of Turn 10 Studios, Dan Greenewald. Thanks for coming in, Dan.
How you doing?
Doing really good. Tell us a little bit about Forza Motorsport 4. What's the first thing you want people to know about this new take on the series?
Well, you know, Forza's all about cars in general. Forza 1 all the way through 4. But we've really accelerated as a franchise, innovating on all fronts. We've got great innovation in live. We've integrated Connect in a variety of ways for casual players as well as core players. Of course, we're pushing racing with tons of new features. And in general, the game just looks fantastic.
Can you tell us a little bit about the graphical upgrades you've made this time around?
Well, you know, this is kind of a funny story, but actually the graphics came out of Connect, which I don't think anyone would ever expect. But honestly, we started working on the AutoVista mode based on Connect. We wanted people to be able to walk up and move around the car, but if they were going to get within that sub 6-inch detail, you know, really close in the car, it had to hold up. So we had to look at higher resolution models and a new lighting model, new shaders for suede, Alcantara, and all of that, and then all of that new feature work integrated its way into cockpit view in-game as well as just on track.
So how does that kind of improvement set the car in its environment? Because I know along the way in the different previews we've seen, it's all about how the different weather conditions, the track, and the location are all reflected in the car itself.
Yeah, well, let's actually take a look at an environment right here.
And which track is this we're going to be looking at?
Well, I think if we just look at what the car looks like in its actual natural environment here, what I can explain to you is this is actually image-based lighting you're looking at. Now, in the past, games use a lighting engine for their environment and then a lighting engine for the car, and then you blend them and you tune them so they look very, very similar. And a really good game developer makes them look almost exactly alike. But with image-based lighting, the car is actually lit by the environment itself. So when we put a car in a beautiful environment like this, it gets the soft tones you expect where you expect, it gets high contrast and sharp tones elsewhere.
Cool. And so how does this apply to the things around the cars and the tracks themselves?
Well, maybe we ought to head onto the Alps and take a look at that.
So this is one of your first fictional tracks that aren't from the real world of racing. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired taking it to the Alps and how you go about creating a track that doesn't exist in the real world?
Absolutely. So we went on location to the Alps, Switzerland, went to France. It's rough work.
It's tough. It's really hard.
And we were trying to get reference on some of the greatest driving roads that you're going to find in these mountainous regions. But in many ways, this track was actually meant to be a decathlon for our rendering engine. Because we have long draw distances, we have tight areas where you need high detail. I mean, you also have high contrast, right? You see the really bright snow that's blooming out, we've got water, and then of course there's all these high contrast rocks. And that's really hard for a rendering engine to do. So by building this environment, it forced us to perfect the IBL, that image-based lighting, to make the car just sit in that environment perfectly.
Yeah. And you can definitely see in these images how the sun's just careening off the hood and the windshield doesn't quite have the same glow. So how do you go about making sure each surface looks different for the condition?
Usually that's done with shaders. So different material types have different properties. So plastic gets a little bit more of a diffuse light, and you know, as you're going over like a metallic surface, it gets the speckles around the edges. So that's actually just setting up the car to have the right surface properties on each little bit.
Well, great. Well, let's get a little technical. Let's get to the important stuff.
My favorite part.
Let's jump into this race.
All right.
Let's see how it's looking. So which, looks like you're taking the Subaru out for a spin?
Yeah, it's a great car, all-wheel drive. It's right in the middle, right? In this demo, we actually brought the 599 as well, and the Mercury Cougar Eliminator. I love the Mercury Cougar. Oh, hey, watch out, buddy. I really love the Mercury Cougar, and I actually have the AI taking over now, so
you've just gotten so good, you don't need to look.
Discussing. Yeah. I like the Mercury Cougar because it kind of represents that irresponsibility of like the gas guzzler, and you know, I got nothing against the Prius, but honestly, I kind of love this hooliganism that is the resurgence of the American muscle car.
Now, I know you guys have touched on that in the various demos I've seen. How is Forza 4 really going to showcase that American muscle?
Well, you know, there are a couple things. One is the car list itself, and we're not announcing a lot of the new cars, so don't even ask. But we also took apart some American muscle cars and other types of classic cars to really take a look at the architecture of that suspension and the solid axle. So we modeled that just right. We also did a lot to do with the tire physics in the game, including working with Pirelli, not only to just give us new data, but we asked for custom tests. And their data directly drives the game now. So we don't have a mishmash of like some Pirelli data, some Goodyear data, some SAE data. It's all Pirelli, and we conformed our engines so that their test data directly drives the game. In a muscle car, that's really noticeable because we already had the cars kind of walking like a dog with tire flex, which is still in there. It's just been refined by Pirelli. But also with the suspension, the cars just drive so differently. It's very, very cool.
So what's the first thing that players are going to notice when they first hit the gas in a new race?
You know, honestly, I think a big part is going to be the cockpit view. We have a new cockpit view in Forza Motorsport 4, and it inherited a lot of the work from AutoVista.
Yeah.
Alcantara, plastic, which you'd be surprised how hard it is to actually simulate plastic in a lighting engine. It's surprisingly hard. But we've pulled the cockpit back, we've gone up, moved it down slightly, there's more FOV and more shake, and then you can see the high contrast, the bloom and the lighting crawling across the car. That's all as a result of the new lighting engine in general.
Great, so what other features can we expect from the multiplayer angle of the game?
Well, of course we have 16-player cars, and the truth is, if you're like me, 16 players in competitive racing actually is kind of daunting, because it means instead of coming in 7th and 8th, I'm going to come in like 15th and 16th. Where it gets cool is when you think about cat and mouse, capture the flag type games, tag, keep the it, you know, all these different alternate types of games we had in Forza Motorsport 3, with 16 players, they really, really open up. And we've added a few new ones we're not talking about just yet. We also have Rivals mode, and we have car clubs. Car clubs work as you would expect, but you can also share cars. So if you're a great tuner or a great painter, you can actually make everybody's car experience much more rich. And Rivals mode is asynchronous play. So if you and I can't race against each other because our time zones are different, you can set a hot lap and I can go challenge you and headhunt and try and take the bounty off of you.
Yeah.
And whenever I play in Rivals mode, I get XP, I get credits, so I level up, I get gift cards. It's really another way of playing single player career, but it's in a multiplayer type feeling.
Absolutely. Now what would you say is your absolute one thing you want to leave people with when you think Forza Motorsport 4?
Well, you know, I'm really excited about AutoVista. It's not what people necessarily expect, and it was born out of the incubation and the innovation that comes out of Connect. Now, it can be played with a controller, but it's really a new way of thinking about cars. Now, of course, cars are fun to be driven, obviously.
Yeah.
They're fun to be upgraded and tuned and painted. But the cars we selected here are cars that are fun just to experience. You know, when you think about a McLaren F1 and the doors open and the back opens and there's gold plating and titanium exhaust and there's just a center seat that's just crazy, plus all the Top Gear integration on top of it, Jeremy Clarkson telling you more about the car. It's just a really cool mode, whether you do it with Connect or with a controller, and I hope it gets people really excited about cars.
And I think that's pretty much your focus. It seems like Forza 4, much expectedly and much anticipated, is about the cars when it really comes down to it. So thanks, Dan, for joining us. And stay tuned for more on Forza Motorsport 4 from IGN.com. Back to you.
Thanks a lot, guys, and that's a wrap for day 2 of IGN's E3 live show. A humongous thank you to all of our guests and crew for the awesome coverage today. But don't think that's it. We're continuing the awesomeness tomorrow with the Old Republic, Assassin's Creed, and much, much more. I'm Naomi Kyle, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.